know, what are you doing? It's one of those things, right?
Yeah.
We were concentrating on our 5th year and all these, big life decisions are ahead of us. But all we were concentrating really on was the conference championship and the national championship, if we could get there.
Right.
And so he goes, my brother is starting a wrestling website. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I thought it was like WWE, But it's like, it's Greco-style wrestling, like actual wrestling in college. And he wrestled at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And he goes, yeah, he's been shadowing an author around the country who's interviewing wrestling coaches. And he just was like, man, this should be available in video format online.
Right.
And he goes, so the idea is that we would do the same thing for track. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And then to back up, what really got us thinking about this was Arthur Lydiard came to the University of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You probably remember, he came on a Texas tour.
I saw him at Incarnate Word in San Antonio.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, was this right before he passed away?
It was a couple years before he passed away.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he came and visited us and spoke to 18 of us.
Right.
In our locker room. Jason Vigilante at the time, our coach, set it up. And he came and spoke to us. And we had an equipment manager who came and sat a video camera on the Coke stand in our team room. And he said, guys, it's an NCAA bylaw. I've got to film this because he's a guest of, guest lecturer. And we're like, okay, that's weird. And he just pointed it at the wall. And here's this legend, Arthur Lydiard, talking one-on-one with 16 guys.
Yeah.
And he told each and every one of us, you can win a medal. You can win a medal. And he did it with the same exact focus you could imagine that he did it with all his New Zealanders who lived within a 7-mile radius of his home. Well, he died 3 weeks later.
Wow.
He passed away.
Wow.
And we went back to try and find that video just to listen to him again because he was giving us so many golden nuggets. They deleted it. And it was gone forever. So that was another thing in our mind, like, that was gone forever. Arthur Lydiard passed away. We're never going to get that back. We're going to try and remember it. But how cool would it have been if we've just had that video? So then when Martin came back and said, we can have all this archived online, it was like, whoa, that makes sense. Because we kind of lived that, losing some stuff and losing a great interaction with a coach there. So anyhow,
it's
I don't know how we got off on that.
It's crazy to me how you guys can do all this, like how you get to the events and put together the videos and get them uploaded. And I mean, I'm just thoroughly impressed. I mean, I have been from the beginning, but it's amazing what you guys cover. The content that you're able to churn out is incredible. I mean, it's like,
hey,
crazy scientist or something.
The team, right? It's all about the team around you.
Absolutely.
And having talent around you to do that. And obviously having the vision, the very forward-thinking and vision of having a leader who can do that, but then surrounding yourself with that type of talent.
It's great stuff.
Just like anything. Which
great stuff.
Brings us to why, are we rolling? Yes, sir. Okay, cool.
Oh, cool.
Which brings us to why and again, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Coach
Thanks
Mike
for asking.
Barnett.
Yeah. I should be interviewing you.
No.
Okay.
Any type of success that I have ever had is basically the direct result of somebody that has been there and done that, who I listened to and took notes. That's my coaching, career in a nutshell. I just listened and took their experiences. And like you said when we talked earlier, shorten that bell curve in terms of the learning curve.
Right.
Shorten that for a guy like me who was young. And really that's the reason why I've asked you to be here.
Okay.
Because you've been there and done that. You, Coach Mike Barnett here from Luling High School, you were there for 31 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
During that time, and correct me if I've got any of this wrong, but I did some research. And again, this is a coach talking to another coach, so I need to know these things just like any other respectful coach would. But 25 individual state champions, 3 state record holders in track, 7 consecutive state championships in cross country.
8 now.
8 now, that's right. Yeah, this past fall.
All right.
5 high school All-Americans, 2 individual national champions in track and field. Coach, that's a hell, and there are many, many more, many, many more accolades under your name here. But that's a hell of an accomplishment.
Thank you.
In a career where you grew up in Luling, Texas, where you coached for 31 years.
Right.
I don't think that this type of experience, this type of success is a flop. I think you've got a program. I think you've got a philosophy, and that's what I want to talk to you about. So, Coach, I want to just kind of introduce where Luling is. For those who don't know, Luling, Texas is about 50 miles south of here?
Yeah, about 40 miles south.
Okay.
14 miles south of Lockhart. It seems that most people know where Lockhart's at.
Yeah.
They don't know where Luling's at.
That's right.
So go about 14 miles farther, and you'll get the better barbecue.
That's right.
And we're right on Interstate 10.
Legendary barbecue down in that area of Texas.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Population of 5,000.
5,000. Little less than 400 in high school.
Little less than 400. Okay, so we're talking 400, and in the boys, you're thinking half of that. There's 200.
Right.
That you've got to pull from.
Correct.
To get 7 guys, 5 scores to the state championship.
Correct.
For 8 consecutive years.
Correct.
That to me is that's impressive.
Thank you.
Now, what are we doing there? Are we recruiting on campus? Are we getting in front of the coach, the football coaches there, and picking talent? Or
a lot of folks do not believe this. I quit recruiting kids a long time ago. They just tend to kind of gravitate toward the program. I think once you've got a philosophy that you actually do, kids are drawn to certain things, and they begin to seek out that rather than you necessarily having to promote it very much. It's word of mouth. Hey, you need to try this. This is something maybe you would like, or maybe this is where you would fit. And so in the latter years, kids sought me out. I didn't really recruit much. I never got in front of junior high athletic programs. I never got in front of junior high PE classes. And I know people think that's crazy, and that's not that didn't happen, but that's the truth. I didn't recruit. I think once you've established a little success, word of mouth is a lot of times your best advertisement.
Right.
And, when you recruit, I know recruiting's the name of the game in college and whatnot, but in a small school like ours, I didn't want to cause too much of a wave with any other coach. And so I just never recruited kids. I never recruited against a program. It was just, hey, if you want to run, we'll make it happen. And if you want to do something else, we'll allow you to do that too. You have to share athletes. Fortunately, kids would choose just to run. And that was their decision. I had nothing to do with it other than just provide them an atmosphere where they could chase after being the best they could be. And so I didn't do a lot of recruiting, to be honest with you.
Well, and I think once you're at the level of, let's say, the past, 11 years, it probably was easier. But let's talk about the first 20 years. How did you get into the sport? How did you get into coaching?
I had a really powerful experience when I was a kid. I had a coach take an interest in me, like a lot of us. I was extremely competitive when I was born, I think. And I just kind of thought everybody was like that. Even as a kindergarten kid, I had to win the race to the blacktop every day during recess, and if I didn't, it was a pretty bad day. I ripped up jeans from sliding into second on the blacktop playing kickball. My mom really didn't like that too much, but I just kept doing it. I felt like I had to win anything I did. And so I was really competitive. And so as you kind of go through your athletic career, I did everything. I played football for a little while. I played baseball my whole life. But when I ran into track, there was something about that individual thing that really appealed to me, that I didn't have to depend on guys that maybe weren't as serious about being good football players or being good baseball players. I didn't have to worry about them. I was in control of how hard I worked, and if I got beat, they were either just working harder than me or they're just better than me. But I was in control, and I like that. I like the individual aspect of going out and busting your tail and seeing what you can get with it. And so ran into a coach in high school that just took me under his wing and gave me all his runner's worlds and track and field news, and I became just an absolute nut. I read everything cover to cover. I read the ads. I read the copyright. I read the publisher. I read everything that I could get my hands on and just fell in love with it. And it was allowed me to isolate myself from maybe some friends that were doing some things that I just didn't really want to be a part of, but it gave me a place to thrive without having to, quote, fit in. And, you're out there crunching the pavement, or you're out there crunching the dirt roads when it's 25 degrees and no one else is, and there's a certain nobility to that, and you feel pretty good about it when you get done. So, I don't know. I just fell in love with it in high school, went to college, got a small scholarship to go run, and the last thing I wanted to do was teach. I didn't want to get up in front of people. I hated it.
Really?
I hated book reports. I hated show and tell. I'd rather be sick and stay home. But I just felt like I had something to give. I felt like there was something in me that kids could benefit from, and my weakness became my strength. So the ability to communicate to kids and speak became my thing, and I became good at it.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I just did. And,
Yeah.
But I had something in me that I wanted to get out, and that was an avenue to do it, to benefit young people. And that's why I got in it, was just to help kids. And a passion for the sport.
Right.
The runners became my heroes. I was a rabid sports fan of football and baseball and basketball, and that all just kind of has faded over the years. I hardly follow professional sports except the Spurs. And the reason I follow the Spurs is because of the way they do things.
I couldn't agree more.
I love the way they play the game.
Yeah.
But I love the way I love their philosophy, and how they go about things is unique and different. So 20 years of excellence in professional sports, when things change every day,
yes,
is worth paying attention to and learning from. And I just like stuff like that. But I don't have a lot of use for professional sports in general. I don't like the performance-enhancing drug aspect of it. It's kind of turned me sour on it. But I love what the Spurs do, so I follow them a little bit. But
it's truly impressive what Popovich has done there.
It's unbelievable.
And that organization.
It's unbelievable. And, I've always been asked, who would you have dinner with if you had a chance, and you get the 3 choices and all that. And I'm like, Popovich would be one of them. I'd like to sit down and pick his brain because – I read everything he's done, and I read everything he says, and I'm thinking there's some kindred stuff there that I would love to explore and just see if it's true. And
that makes sense, Coach. So one thing, you being an educator and helping young people develop, I've heard that as a part of your coaching protocol, you have your athletes write some type of reports or kind of goals and assess. Can we get into that?
Yeah, I use what's called a logbook.
Okay.
And basically what the logbook does, and for a long time I didn't. And so my coaching career has kind of evolved. I can remember early on, I was really after the cheese, so to speak. I mean, I wanted to know. And so I'd get on the phone and I'd look up numbers back before you had the internet, and I'd call around and I'd get Danny Green's number and I'd get different people's number, and I'd call them up and say, hey, I'm Mike Barnett, I'm Luling, can I talk to you? And, what do y'all do?
Yeah,
Scott Hippensteel down at Lockhart.
Right.
What do y'all do? What are you doing?
I talked to Coach Hippensteel about it. You guys are separated by 14 miles.
Yes.
And here you are both, in Texas coaching, you've got more accolades within 14 miles than.
Yeah. So I would call anybody and everybody. I wasn't bashful about it. And they could just tell me go take a hike, or they can answer some questions, And I was hoping they would. And some were really good about giving information. I got a hold of Jack Daniels back when he was at Cortland up in New York.
Yeah.
And I would call him weekly. We established a time where I could call him, and I'd have my yellow pad full of questions, and he'd give me an hour. And I'd call him on Wednesdays during my lunch at school, and that was when he could work with me. And so I've got notebooks. I mean, I've got stuff from him. And then I'd call Dr. V. Hill when he was out in Alamosa.
Yeah.
And he'd do the same. And I got a hold of the books, that everybody said to get a hold of, and I read all the Lydiard stuff. Couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like this. It's all like this over here, and like I don't know. Anyway, but I read Lydiard stuff.
Yeah.
And I went to clinics, and I did what I was just trying to figure it out. And one thing though, I went to level 1 and level 2 USA Track and Field Coaching School, and level 3. They had a level 3 in Dallas, and they had Brooks Johnson, Robert Vaughn, Peter Snell.
Wow, yeah.
And some of those guys presented, and it was a distance conference, but they never really solidified level 3, but it was one of the first prototypes level 3. So I was in on that. I was the only high school coach there. It was all college coaches, I don't know how I figured out to go, but anyway, I was there. And every time I went to one of these schools, they'd talk about philosophy. What's your philosophy? You need a philosophy. And I was like, to hell with that. Give me the workouts. I can get kids to do it. Just give me the workouts, right? And anyway, long story short, I began to realize I needed to develop a philosophy. And I needed to revolve that philosophy around certain principles of life. I call them core models, if you will, models. And everything needed to connect. And so that the training could connect to the philosophy.
Yes.
And so I developed, over time, I developed a logbook, which is really you, the coach, when you're not around. The kids carry it around with them. They take it to class. They take it home. Parents love to see that kind of stuff. And anyway, there's a log sheet in there for daily training. And then there's sections in there for the philosophy. So you articulate the philosophy so you, the coach, not only knows it, but your kids know it. So if the coach can't articulate a philosophy, it's a guarantee that the kids don't have it. If the coach has it but hadn't given it to the kids, that's on the coach. If the coach has it and gives it to the kids, now everybody knows and everyone's held to that standard. Accountability.
You're right.
So I started doing a lot of that. I do a lot of lead teaching and then, reinforce that. And so there'd be a core philosophy and then some models around that of how we want to go about what we do and who we are. And then I held them accountable for daily training. And so every morning we'd meet. Everybody had a different goal, a different distance, different pace. But it was what was necessary for that particular individual to get better. And so I told the kids, if you're going to be a part of the program, they'd come talk to me. I said, you're going to keep a logbook. It's not an option. So that's a non-negotiable. And then on bus trips to meets, we would do a presentation on some aspect of racing, and the kids would write it down, and that was their ticket to get to race. So just because they were on the bus didn't mean they were going to get to run. They had to produce some work when we got to the meet as they were exiting the bus, and if the work was there, they got to race. If not, they got to watch everybody else race.
I like that.
Yeah, it was great, and the kids loved it because they were getting something rather than sleeping, and they were getting something rather than filling their ears with antisocial music and not talking with their teammates. This way they're engaged in something together as a team before they're going to go compete as a team. So that's something we started doing on bus rides. We never took a bus ride where everybody just laid around and listened to whatever. We were on something that was going to benefit them either as a person or a runner, and that was part of their logbook stuff. And then I'd give it back to them, and they'd file it wherever it was supposed to go and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, when did you start implementing this?
I got pretty serious about the logbook stuff in the late 90s.
Okay.
And our program, we were successful. We were doing well. We were at the state meet. We were state ranked, but we weren't where we'd been the last number of years until I really got serious about doing a logbook with the team. And so,
what do you think was the turning point from just being at the state meet to winning and then winning regularly?
That's a great question. I think continuing to grow as a coach and not settling. We, in 93, 91 and 92, I had a top 10 team. They were that good. Mm-hmm. They didn't get to the state meet. Our district had the number 1 and number 3. We couldn't even get out of district because back then they only took 2. So I just kept working at it. 93, I had a team that didn't lose a meet until the state meet. We got state meet, finished 5th, and it was on me. And I couldn't figure out what the hell. I just it was on me, and I knew it.
Why do you say that?
Because Wasn't real sure about what we did down the stretch. I was doubting it, and so I didn't want to shift the focus to the kids, which is easy to do. You can say, "Oh, they just choked," but they didn't choke. It was on me. I knew that something was wrong. I couldn't figure it out, and I vowed that if I ever got another team back to the state meet, that it was going to be they were going to be put in a position to run as well as they possibly can on that day. And if somebody's better than us, that's okay. And so I just really kept working at it, and ran into some stuff that really made a difference for me as just from a training standpoint. And from then on, it was like, I've just never gone into a state meet worried about it. Like it's Christmas time, so we're going to open some damn gifts and have a good time. There's no,
right.
Like, it's not a cockiness. It's just a confidence.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between the two. So I just kept working, kept learning, and kept trying to figure out how to put kids in a real good position to maximize the work they've been doing for months. And I took that real serious as a coach, and I didn't want to throw any kid under a bus. No kid goes to the line and tries to choke on purpose. Nobody. Right. I hear it all the time, though, from coaches. I just freaking choked. They didn't choke. A kid doesn't run a bad race on purpose. Right. There's a reason for that bad race. And if you dig deep enough, you can find it. And then you control what you can control, and then things take their course. But I think that was the transition. I think just not settling for, hey, we're pretty good, and we're on the medal stand, or we're there every year, and all that kind of stuff. I just didn't want to. I wanted to win, but I wanted to know why we won. I wanted to know how to win. And so I just stayed after it, and then the logbooks combined with just continuing to learn as a coach, and the logbooks combined, and then the philosophy and all that really began to kind of cement some things.
I think that cross country it's very underrated in terms of the team element to winning championships.
Oh yeah.
And I think what you have maybe 2-3 hours a day with your student athletes. What are you
2
doing?
hours.
2 hours a day.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Hour and a half.
So what are we doing? What are you doing to ensure that they're held accountable? And I know you mentioned the logbook, but I feel like a big part of any endeavor is accountability, right? But any team aspect, it's you depending on the guys next to you or gals next to you on the starting line. What were you able to do? Because I just feel like, and I watched one of your videos, and you said, I think it was after number 6, you kind of made a comment of 3 or 4 of the guys lived with one another almost, like they were that close, and I don't know if they actually did.
They did.
But so that's probably another story we could get into. But
I could tell you some stories.
Yeah.
I think I could write a book.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm too busy living right now. I don't want to write a book.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But outside of practice and outside of going to competitions, were you promoting them being with one another as teammates and creating that team dynamic?
We would talk about it. I would do research on great teams, the best, and kind of what they did. I'd try to find out what did those teams do. So I would try to promote that where they would understand the specialness of it all and how they can experience that, and it's outside the norm. And I would make abnormal special and normal as something to abhor and stay away from, and try to promote the abnormality of winning and how special that is, and that these are some things you need to consider as individuals and a team if you want to take that next step. If you want to step out of the mediocre masses, if you will, and do something a little different so that when you're at your 20th high school year reunion, you can actually talk about something you did and still take pride in it, as opposed to what everyone else did, which is nothing unique and different than what people have done for 100 years.
Yeah.
So, there's fun and there's fun. So it depends on how you define fun. You go to a movie, go shopping, eat out. Okay, that's great. That was good in the moment. You win a state championship. that's forever.
It's greater purpose.
And you can remember that and how you did it and how you went about it and who you did it with. That's special. It sticks in your blood, if you will. I can't tell you really too much about how many movies and who I was with really back in the day. But I can tell you what I ran as a junior against Carlos Quinones from Killeen at a really, really cold track meet and finished second to him. I can tell you about that. I felt pretty good about that one.
Yeah, and that feeling I was going to say.
And that was fun.
Yeah.
That was a different kind of fun. You pay a price for that one. But I tried to kind of emphasize that kind of stuff with the kids.
Because you're talking about, and I don't mean to cut you off here, but you're talking about Luling, Texas, population of 5,000.
Right.
Lower socioeconomic, which we haven't gotten into, but lower socioeconomics, right? Like in terms of the population, in Caldwell County, just as a general, which is where Luling is based. I think I wrote that 60% of students at Luling High School are economically disadvantaged.
That's a little low.
Okay.
It's probably higher now. It's I think we're up around close to 70% are on free and reduced lunches.
Yeah.
So, and it's a poverty. We're one of the, I think we're the fourth poorest county in Texas.
Okay.
When you take all things into consideration, we struggle on the state test. We're under the gun quite a bit. We're acceptable and in some areas, and then not so acceptable. Kids are behind. Have been in recent years. Have been behind in reading levels. Grade level 2 or 3 grades behind. So you got a freshman who's a 5th grade, 4th grade reader, and you're going to put him in the biology STAR test, and he's going to have to know what photosynthesis means, and then in the context of a big long question, it's a tough gig. So,
but then you think, okay, in so many ways, there are challenges for these kids, and that's true for everyone.
Sure.
But we're not talking about the large 6A powerhouses with all the money in the world and all the support of their folks and stuff.
Right.
This could be, for these kids, their only win up until that point in their life. I mean, that's got to be special, right?
It's beyond that, yeah.
And you took this program from not that to something that was, I don't want to say it was expected, but when you start getting into 8 in a row, that's something more than, they're probably their daily lives of what they're used to, right? Like when they're doing something as a unit to try and achieve a championship, a win across the whole entire state, that's bigger than themselves. And to your point, I would think that would be something to either catapult their careers in school or beyond, and it would definitely be something they would come back to. That's got to be special, right?
Oh yeah, it's the paycheck,
the real paycheck.
It's the real paycheck.
Yeah.
I used to tell people that I would have coached cross country and track for free, and I essentially did. I think I was making 12 cents an hour when you figured out my stipend.
Right.
Yeah, what I was making. And this past year after I retired, I actually coached the team volunteer. The young guy just wasn't quite ready, so I did the same thing I've been doing for 30 years. I just didn't go to the classroom afterwards, which was nice.
Yeah,
but I did. I actually coached for free this past season, and but yeah, it's really special because there's a lot of learned victim. I mean, there's a victim mentality in our community. Learned helplessness or learned hopelessness. My mom and daddy weren't any good. I'm not any good, and they told me I don't need to be any good. They're doing just fine too, living in the, government housing project, and there's some of that there. But they're tough kids because they've been hurt early in their life. Adults that should be adults aren't, and so they learn real quick kind of what's up in life. They learn the harder knocks of life, and so to earn their trust takes a lot. They don't just willingly give themselves to anybody who's over the age of 20. You're out to lunch, you don't know anything, and you're just like my mom and dad. And so to establish a relationship and then be able to break through that shell, that hardness, is it's probably harder than winning the state championship, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But if you can get through that.
How did you? How did you establish trust?
You let them know that you love them, you care about them, you listen to them, you talk to them, you hold them accountable. You're tough when you need to be. You tell them which side the bread's going to be buttered on, and they actually want that. They appreciate that. And, you boot them when you need to boot them. You don't. You hold your line. You draw a line in the sand, if you will, and there's some non-negotiables, and kids like that. They respect that, because what happens if you say something and then you don't do it, you've lost your integrity, and the kids see through you. You're just another adult that doesn't mean what he says. And so what happens is the kid that will go to war and run through a wall, literally,
yes,
you lost them. They'll never do it for you, and because they don't have to. They can hang around, they can be on the team, and they'll do pretty good, but they won't kill. Satisfied lion in a zoo is not a killer. You feed them meat, and they know you don't mean anything. You're not going to let them out. So I think that's real important. But yeah, being able to do it there has been very, very rewarding. We are the McFarland USA. I mean, we are right there with them. I met one of their coaches, Thomas Valle, who was on that 98 team that they chronicled in the movie. He came down to Corpus and was at the regional meet. Okay. And we got to meet him, and he came over and spoke with our kids. And I talked to him quite a bit afterwards about their situation. Luling's the same. It's just here in Texas. And we've done every bit what they did, and we've just done it with similar kids too. So, and not a lot of kids in the program. A couple years there where we won state championships, I had 6 boys in the program total. 6 boys in the high school program. That was it. So it'd be like telling the football coach, "Hey, you got 10. You need to win a state championship with them." Right. And you're not getting any more. There's no alternates. There's nobody on the sideline. Go win the state championship, coach. Or you got 4 basketball players. Hey, let's go win it. We did it. We did it with 6 2 years out of these 8. We did it with 6 total boys in the high school program.
That lined up 6.
That's it. That's all that showed up every morning for practice. Wow. And then, of course, we had the girls, too. We had some junior high kids. But as a high school boys program, there were a couple years there where we just had 6 boys, and we won it.
I mean, you've got to maximize.
There's not an ounce, there's not an inch for error. There's no room for error. And that's fun. It's fun when you do that. It's like, man, that's all right. Let's go eat. Yeah,
that's good. That's right.
See y'all Monday.
Yeah.
We'll go at it again.
Maybe tell someone to bring their friend next time.
Yeah. Hey, y'all get another one. We might run him. If he can, run fast enough, we'll put him in there and be a 7. We'll be a full team, guys. Next year, we might be a full team.
So going back to your first state championship.
99.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about, because I think you said in the previous time when you made it to the state championship, it was the only race that you did not win, and that you saw there were some things that you could have done differently, that you took it upon yourself.
Right.
And what do you think you would, or what do you attribute to the success of that first state championship?
We had been close in 96. We were 3rd with 4 freshmen. And those 4 kids ran for me all 4 years. So we were 3rd in 96. We tied for 2nd in 97, lost on a tiebreaker. We were literally 2nd in 98. And I thought we were going to win it in 98, and we didn't. That was a blow. I was like, I just don't know if they'll come back, And I was concerned about that after the award ceremony. We got our medals. It was a cold day. We got on the bus, and I'm thinking, I just don't know. I don't know what to tell these kids. I thought we were going to win it. And we finished 2nd to Canton, I think. Won it, and I was like, what am I going to tell them, What am I going to say? And so one of the kids on the team got up in the back of the bus, and he goes, "Hey, Coach, how far Monday?" I was like, we're going to win it.
Yeah.
I knew right then.
Yeah.
I said, I don't really need to say much. we're gonna win it. We're gonna win it in '99, and they came back and we won it. So it's just a process of taking your disappointments and your defeats, and the old cliche, you learn from them. You do if you're smart. If you're stubborn, then you just keep doing the same thing, and
definition of insanity.
Yeah, you're like, what the hell? How come we're not? Well, you might want to think about changing something. Yeah. I don't know. I transitioned our training. Our training shifted over the years, became much more aerobically based. We stayed away from lactic acid or anaerobic stuff unless we were really ready to do it. We stayed on the aerobic coin side a lot, long, hard tempo runs. And then even when we transitioned to intervals, they were at an aerobic pace at the high end before you slide over into anaerobic. So we were right on the edge of the sword with that stuff. But so we went higher volumes. We began to run a little more mileage so that we could handle greater volumes of high-end aerobic work, and that made a big difference for us. That changed some things, and so it's just a matter that '99 team had 7 really tough kids. All of them came from difficult backgrounds, struggle.
Yeah,
and they were just tough as hell, and they took a lot of grief. How do you say it? They just took a lot from their classmates that didn't really want them to win. And so they had a lot going against them. So their own doubts, they'd been there, 3 years, hadn't won it. Classmates are maybe a little jealous, didn't really want to see them to win it. Luling had never won a state championship in anything, nothing. We'd been in the hunt a couple times in different sports, but we'd never won one. And so to be that first team to knock the door down and win it was really special. And it was a great bunch of kids. I mean, just tough kids. But if I could take those kids now and run what we've done the last 6-7 years, that team would have run out of sight in '99. I think we won by 13. They would have just destroyed the field because they were of that metal that you don't really have to do much. You just light a match and they'll go, But you only know what you know, and so you can't do with someone what you don't know at the time. And so, if I could go back, I would change a few things with that bunch. Even though they won it, they could have been dominant.
Yeah.
So.
It's funny as and you're probably the same way, but I talk to a lot of coaches, and there is always that a piece of the conversation comes up, and it's, if I could go back, I would do this differently here, or with this one athlete, or with this one team. There's always that. Yep. And I feel like that is development and growth in coaching, right? The fact that you're cerebral enough that you can understand that you did make a mistake.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was always second-guessing myself as a coach because I wanted to get it right for the kids. I mean, they're going to give me this much of their time. They're going to give me this much effort. It's on me to put them in a good position, and I really took that serious. I just, I didn't get paid a stipend to go drive the damn bus and drop them off and go, I'll see y'all back here in about 20 minutes, or I took it real serious. I mean, I wanted to be good at what I did, and I wanted to. For me, it was personal. I'm from Luling. It's my home. I was given an opportunity to go back there. I wasn't looking to go back there, but things happened, and I was able to go back and start my career there. And I thought, in 5 years I'll leave and go somewhere else. And it just never, I got the offers, but I just kept turning them down. And so when the bus left town for a meet, for me, it's personal. Those are my kids. That's my home. Those are I know these kids. I know their parents. And so for me, it's personal. It's like, we're going to go rip some heads off. We're going to let people know Luling is okay. You're not going to talk bad about us about everything. We're going to kick your ass.
I love it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so I had that mentality as a coach. Like, we're not going to take shit from anybody. We're going to show up, and we're going to let people know we belong here. And we're going to run the big dogs, and we're going to beat a bunch of them. And we're not going to run against schools our size. We're going to run against people that are bigger than us, and they ought to be beating us. And we're going to beat them. And that became kind of that was the thing. The kids, man, after a couple years of that, they're like, we ain't ever running against 3A schools. We're going to run the 6A kids. Let's see how close we can get to them.
Yeah.
And so that became kind of that became a big deal, a badge of honor, something they were proud about. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we entered all the big races. If it was big school, we're in it. Gold division, we're in it. We didn't care. So
was that always your methodology there?
When I first started, it wasn't, because you got to get kids to want to come out.
Yeah.
And if you put them in there and they get trashed, they're like, I think I can play football and stand on the sideline and get trashed, during practice. So
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you want them to win a little bit and get a medal. And so we would run in the, early on, we'd run in our size. But you're not going to get better if you don't get challenged. And, if you're running against big schools all year long and you got people all around you, you're learning how to race in cross country with a crowd.
Yeah.
Then you get to the regional meet and state meet, and there's not very many people around you now because you're running against your size.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be up here because I've been fighting the traffic
Yeah.
all year long. Now I'm free to run.
Right.
And they feel pretty good about it.
A little swagger to their
A little
stride.
swagger, like, hey, yeah, there's nobody around me because, well, they haven't been doing what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And so that became the philosophy pretty early on.
So the first of, let's say, was it 2009, the first of this last run?
9 or 10, yeah.
2009 or 10.
Yeah.
When you win one, and you'd won before, when you win one and then you win two and you win three and you start to, does that bring about more pressure on you, on your kids, on the team? And if so, how do you deal with it?
That's a great question. I never felt pressure about it. The streak was never a big deal to me, although I'm extremely proud that we own it, that it's ours now.
Right.
It was never a goal to do that.
And I just want to interject here for the listeners. It's my understanding that, without a doubt, you have the state record now in the state of Texas record in cross country.
Right.
Is that all sports?
I think it is.
I think so too.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's a state record in all sports.
Consecutive state championships
In a row.
Yes.
For any sport.
Right.
I think we own it. But the streak was never a point of emphasis. It was never, hey, we're going to go for 8. 8 is great. 7 is heaven.
Mm-hmm.
5 is whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It just never really came up much. The emphasis was on daily training at your current fitness level in order to improve progressively over time to be able to run personal records and achieve state meet landmarks. And so I went back and studied the 3A state meet for 20 years. And there's a pretty good correlation as to what a team needs to run to be on the medal stand. Now, it's gotten faster. It's improved. But if you look at the team average for your top 3 teams every year, it's pretty consistent. And so you begin to break that down by, mile average. What do you need to average a mile per mile as a team to be on the medal stand?
On the day of the state meet.
On the day of the state meet.
Right.
So you look at the results, and you can get a pretty good idea what a team needs to be able to average to be in the hunt to medal. And then if you really want to take a stab at winning it, you don't settle for that. You look at the 5A, the 4A, the 6A above you. What are those medal teams running? And you make that kind of your standard. And then you look at the individual stuff. What does it take for an individual to be a top 3? and you break that down for any kids you got that might have that potential. And you say, these are the standards that you're going to have to meet, and they don't change. You know, these are the standards. It's kind of like meeting the standard to run in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
You got to run the A standard.
Right.
That is, it's not changing. You either do it or you don't. And so, then the demands of the sport naturally become the goals. And it's not you, the coach, badgering or whipping or yelling or screaming. It's you, the coach, teaching. And so you teach what's necessary, and then you sit back and watch which kids will go for it. And you step in and critique here and there where you need to, but you coach, and coaching's observation, really. You watch what's going on. And then when you need to, you step in and say a few words, but you don't need to say a lot. And coaches talk too much.
You know, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I've found that the times, and I've heard this a lot from coaches much older than I with much more experience, but the worst thing that you could ever have is an athlete who wants it less than you do as a coach.
Correct.
And I saw that in 2011 with one of my athletes, Leo Manzano, and we still made it to the World Championships, but we had a terrible year.
Right.
Injuries and things just weren't clicking like they should have been. And I almost thought that I was forcing it. Like I thought that I was in control of this.
Right.
And it took me, I had this realization between 2011 and 2012 season,
Right.
that I did not have control.
Right.
That I was more the passenger in this car ride, and I would give hinters, take a left, pump the brakes,
Yep.
turn your indicator on.
Yep.
And that to me it was kind of like what you're saying. It was putting control and accountability in the athlete's hands.
Has to be. I think that's one of my, and I don't, of course this is going to go out. People are going to hear it. But one of the things I really try to do as a coach is to transfer ownership to the athlete, and that the athlete becomes intrinsically motivated by his work and what he's trying to accomplish, as opposed to me providing the motivation. That the kid needs to take ownership and want to do the work and understand what's necessary and be able to do it whether I'm there or not. And so if you get to the point where you can get a kid to become autonomous, independent of you, the coach, you've actually done a tremendous job of coaching, where they can actually, once you've shown them, they can go out and execute the workouts without you having to be there standing over them. But they understand the value of the workout, they understand the importance of the workout, and that it can get done exactly correctly with intensity without you having to be there. You've done your job as a coach. And so that was my angle as a coach, that my kids are going to know more than anybody else's kids when they step on the starting line. They may look like ragnots from a poor town, but they're a whole lot smarter than your kids. They know a lot more about it than you do.
Yeah.
And by the time my son graduated, he knew more than most coaches. And he's just a curly-headed, free-spirited goofball, but he was smart, and he led the team, and so I think you've done a good job as a coach once you've been able to transfer ownership, and I think that's where a lot of young coaches, and I struggled with this early in my career. It was about me making it happen,
right?
And I think I validated myself in some ways by my coaching successes, or my results as a coach provided validation for me that was probably more about my ego than the good of the athlete. And
right.
I think that's where a lot of coaches struggle. I meet young coaches all the time, and they're just like I was. They want the magic bullet. They want the recipe, but they don't want to do the work. But they want to claim ownership.
Right.
And there's a lot of folks out there like that. They are lazy. They can manipulate technology. They can find an app for everything, but they won't sit down and do the work of learning. And they want to copy somebody else's stuff and then claim ownership.
Right.
And it's how do you say it? It's weak, and it's I don't know. It's not a good thing, but I see that a lot in young coaches, and I'm hoping that's not a trend that's gonna, But again, it comes down to what do you place value in? What's important to you as a coach? Is your identity wrapped up in your coaching career, or can you walk away from it and be content the next day doing something completely different? And so I think there's got to be an all in when you're with the athlete and the kids, but there's also got to be I can unzip and step outside this, and I'm completely okay over here if I never coach another athlete.
Right.
So there's got to be an all in, but there's got to be a sense of contentment and a sense of self-awareness and maybe emotional intelligence that allows you to be all okay without producing a gold medalist,
right,
or in your case, a silver medalist. Does that define me the rest of my life? I don't know, but for a lot of coaches it does, and that's why they can't give it up, or they can't seem to let go of the reins a little bit. I think the great ones are able to do that. I think V. Hill is a great example.
Yeah.
It's all about philosophy with him, and it's about the value of the individual and taking the whole picture and not just seeing that athlete as a robot who's going to produce times,
yes,
but as a whole person who, needs to grow along with becoming a better athlete. Certainly the emphasis is on that because that's what's paying the bills, but the person has got to be the most important part of the deal.
Well, it's so easy to become emotional.
Gosh.
And we talk about coaching and developing athletes, but very rare does someone come up and say, "How you doing, coach?" And it's how, maintaining, getting into this and maintaining a certain level of, and I think my personal opinion is that you have to have balance. I really believe that in order for you to sustain 31 years of coaching, right?
Yep.
And I see so many coaches who the highs and lows have gotten to them over the years, and they just burn out.
Yep.
How do you, we talked about that, like the awareness and being able to step away. Is it something that, how do you process it? Is it just in terms of, if you think back over 31 years, that's longevity. I'll be honest. After the Olympic Games in 2012, I had to get away.
Yep.
I had to step away from coaching. I put 4 years.
Yep.
Okay, but it was all in.
Yep.
I had to step away.
Yep.
31 years.
Yeah, and I was all in.
Yeah.
I tell people, and this is not exaggeration, I met with my kids year-round 6 days a week. I took vacations to running camps with kids. I gave my stipend that I would make at running camps to the kids in order to lower their cost. So I'd make a couple $1,000s, and I'd just say, I want you to apply that to my kids. I don't want the money, just lower their cost so we can get into this thing. So I was all in, 6 days a week, year-round. We would meet during Christmas break. We'd meet during spring break. We'd meet during Thanksgiving. If the kids were in town, we met and ran. So I totally understand the needing to step away or wanting to step away. But for me, it was just I don't know. I think I'm a little different in that way. I think I'm wired different. I just had a tremendous passion for it. As soon as cross-country season was over, Monday we were working, again. Now, we'd reduce mileage and all, but we're working. We're going at it. And I think I just enjoyed the process, the daily process of doing what other people aren't doing to achieve things that others can't do. I took pride in that. I just enjoyed that. And so I don't know. I tell coaches you really, really, really need to have a fire in your belly. You need to really have a passion for it, love it, be relentless, unapologetically demanding, but also very, very positive too. And so there were times where you kind of go, oh, I don't know, I'm just like, I think I need a break and get a 3-day weekend. I'd go to the hill country, or I'd go down the beach and surf or something, but never away from it very long. And I'm not saying that's what everybody has to do, but that's how I did it. That's how I felt like I needed to. I felt like if I was going to ask this kind of commitment from the kids, I needed to be more committed to them, 31 years, it's just, I don't know, it's just been a passion. But I'm really excited about the next chapter. I'm enjoying that. Incredibly so. I just recently quit going to practice, and it's different.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not getting up and going to practice. I'm getting up, but I'm not going to practice. And so it's different. That's all I've known. And yet I'm like transitioning like it's good.
Right.
I don't feel like I just think it was time, the retirement from the classroom, definitely time. And I think stepping away from doing it the way that I've been doing it, I think it's time. I may do some private stuff on the side with people. I was offered a nice college job. I turned that down. I want some autonomy and some independence, and I'm going to be very careful about what I attach myself to.
Right.
I want to be able to say, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to.
Yeah.
And so I'm very content right now. Feels good to be where I'm at.
You're able to come here on a 2:30 on a Monday.
Well, yeah. See, I got a part-time job in San Marcos, and I told my boss, "Hey, I'm out of here at 11:30." He said, "Do what you want to do." And so I said, "Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go buy some shoes and go talk to some people about running."
Yeah, that's right.
He goes, "Well, have fun." So, I don't know,
Coach. I wanted to ask this and kind of make this a regular thing, but you've won or experienced a win at every level in your classification, in your division, in your endeavor, at your level of coaching. You've won at every level.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define success?
Ooh, as a coach,
as a person, as a coach, you as Coach Barnett.
How do I define it? Okay, as a coach, I define it as it sounds cliche, but it's doing the very best you can with what you've got. And it's giving every kid the same opportunity to improve regardless of their ability. So I took kids, and this is where our program was very different from a lot of programs. I took kids who 11-minute milers when they came out. And by the time they finished, they were under 6.
Right.
That's success.
And that's within 4 years.
And that's within 4 years.
Yeah.
I've taken kids that were 10, 30 milers, and they broke 5. And they were fat and chubby, but they wanted to run.
Yeah.
And I didn't turn them away as long as they kept the logbook, showed up on time, and contributed to the good of the team. They were welcome every day. I define that as success. You take a person and they're here, point A, and you show them how to get to point B, and along the way you give them a skill set that they can then take and apply that to anything they do. It's not just running. You want to play guitar? Okay, you can't play right now. You're at point A. You want to play like Stevie Ray? Good luck. It's not going to happen, but you could get close. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because it was in him. But it's given them a skill set on how to navigate life and their own hang-ups, their own self-imposed obstacles to get to here and show them how to do it. And that's success. And so the logbook is about running, but it's about life. And so the stuff they're given in that logbook translates to whatever they're going to go do. That 99 team had a kid that went to West Point, graduated West Point, first kid ever from Luling to ever do that. He did NSA, national intelligence stuff. He got into Afghanistan covertly, was told, we don't know you if you get caught.
Wow.
He did he did stuff.
Yeah.
And he rode his bike into practice every morning, 3 miles out of town, sometimes roll up on flat tires. He was never late, It's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
2 kids that came from severely messed up home. Dad beat them, alcoholic, living in a shack. Ran on that 99 team. Have gone on and done great things, So I think it's that. I think running, you hear running is life. Well, you can teach life through running. And they're not going to go on and have professional careers most likely. We've had 9 or 10 recently go to school on some sort of scholarship help. It's opened the door for them, given them opportunity. A couple of them are going to go into coaching. My son being one of them.
Awesome.
So, that's success.
Yeah.
To me, that's success. Through the sport of running, you give them a real-world experience that translates to life. And so it's not just the athletic achievement. It's, hey, I can use this stuff in college.
Right.
I can use this stuff at the H-E-B warehouse. I can use this stuff as an electrician. I can use this stuff as a military kid. It's and I hear back from a lot of them that that's what's happened, that it's transition. Coach, you were giving us other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Under the guise of running.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's it. You're right. You're enlightened now.
Yeah.
You're welcome to the world.
Yeah.
That's success to me. The championships are a byproduct of climate and culture. You create climate and culture. You maintain it. They happen as a result of creating that, where kids are allowed to go out and confront their limits, go past them. Kids are allowed to go out and find out how good they can be with no one telling them, no, we're all going to just run to the tree and back. I don't care if you want to run to the second tree. You're not going to. You're going to run to the first tree with everybody else. If the kid can run to the second tree, hell, let him run to the second tree. Because kids are just told no, 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 and they're homogenized too much. And so it's allowing kids to break out and go confront physical age limits. Find out, what can you do? It'd be the only time in your life you're ever going to be allowed to do that. So, yeah, you want to run more? You can run more once you confront your physical age limit, then we'll back up from it. But what is that? We don't know yet. Let's go find out. Instead of saying, you're all going to run 50 miles a week.
Yeah.
Because I said so.
Right.
Because I'm the coach. I'm smarter than you. Tell your mom and dad that too. If they don't like it, I'll whip them too. That kind of stuff. So again, it's the coach and the ego and the control. And you got to get your hands off of it and say, you really want to run that? Go do it. You're allowed to. And man, that begins to attract a certain type of kid. When I first started, I had a lot of kids that were one step away from jail, probation kids. I had rough kids. And then as I began to evolve and change as a coach, we began to attract the honors kids, the AP kids. And my team's full of future physicists and doctors and veterinarians, and that's who runs now. Yeah. And they're attracted to that because they're allowed to. It's almost like somebody finds you for the first time. You're like, that guy understands me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so as a kid, it's like a place where I can actually do something.
Yeah.
Not be told no. I bet our runners beg to do more. And so we're in faculty meetings and some of this stuff comes up and, they're like, Coach, how do you, I'm not going to say anything because nobody really wants to know, but I always put it like this. I said, look, I got kids begging me to run more mileage, all of them. Can I run more? Can I bump up next week, Coach? I said, be like you over here, Mr. Math Teacher. They don't want to do 15 problems. They want to do 30. You got them begging you to do more math problems? No.
Probably not.
Well, then something needs to change philosophically so they understand the value of doing more math problems rather than 15 and that's it and they're moaning about that.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset. It's a real paradigm shift, and I think that's success. Yeah, giving kids that environment to experience is very, very rare, and so as a coach, you protect that and you just kind of keep your head down. You don't say a whole lot. You just do it, and you don't draw attention to it other than, hey, we won. And then you just kind of hope not too many people pay attention to that. You just go do it again, so you can keep doing it without people really noticing it much. And then you get a streak going. Everybody goes, what the hell? What's this guy doing down there?
What
What are you drinking? Reindeer milk, like Lasavirin.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big joke. That's what I told my kids. I said, if anybody's asking, I want to just tell them reindeer milk. I said, and only a few will even understand what you're talking about. And I said, the ones that do, they're students of the sport.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So we'd get reindeer stuck on our T-shirts sometimes. Reindeer got milk. Rudolph on the back got milk. And evidently you don't. Maybe some blood doping.
Yeah, serious. So, Coach, I know we kind of got onto this a little bit ago. And you're content with where you're at now, but the person sitting across the table from me right now, I think, is a very passion-driven person.
You are so right, man. I feel stuff really deep, and when kids did stuff I thought they could do, but when they really did it, I'd lose it. I mean, I'd either cry or I'd be screaming like a stuck pig, like with this, like,
yeah,
I don't know, this. It like I don't know if it's animalistic or anyway, from way down inside, this thing comes out that's just proud. Surfers call it slotted. It's like you're doing what you were meant to do at the moment you're doing it with the people you were meant to do it with, and there's not another thing going on in the world. You're present to it, and it's like
you're in the moment.
You're completely in the moment. You're present, and you're going to explode with goodness.
Yeah,
and I've had that my whole career. I mean, it's better than pretty much anything.
Yeah,
it's real drugs, generated by quality effort and overtime and patience and stuff like that.
What's going to be your next outlet? And I know you're kind of in a transition, but will you continue to coach to some capacity, or is it that?
I've got a few people wanting me to coach them on the side. I don't really know if I want to do that yet.
I just feel like you're going to have an outlet at some point.
I run. I'm getting to run more now than I was getting to run.
Yeah.
I lift. I surf. I trail run. And in my mind, I see myself kind of living out of the back of my truck in state parks.
Yeah.
Camping.
Nice.
Trying to figure out how the stars got there and running a trail and eating a hot dog. And I don't know. I ran 10 yesterday on Town Lake yesterday morning.
Nice.
And
the full loop.
I did the full loop.
Yeah.
I went and got some Torchy's tacos.
Oh, man.
Went to Central Market down on 290 and 71 and people watched. And then I went to Amy's Ice Cream. And
you're an Austinite, man.
I think I probably belong up here, but that was great. That was a great day. Friday night I went out to Hill Country by myself and checked out all the lights in all the little towns, slept in the back of my truck. And
living in the moment.
Yeah, and I just got up. Hey, coffee sounds good. I'll go get some coffee. And I don't know.
Yeah. No,
I don't really know what's gonna. I don't know what's gonna come along that's gonna replace that, or even if it needs to be replaced. I don't know. I want to do some trail racing for sure. I want to. I've done a couple, but I really want to get into that. I've considered an ultra.
Oh wow.
Maybe a baby ultra, a 30 miler.
Okay.
Which is what they call it. It's a baby, but it's the step. You know? And so I've thought about training for one of those, and I don't know.
And maybe you don't need to right now.
Yeah, that's just it. I'm not trying to jump to something real quick.
Right.
I'm doing part-time work down in San Marcos. I work for a car dealer, and I just drive people around, and they tell me their stories. And I really love just hearing people's stories, where they're from. I met Texas State head women's soccer coach came in today and dropped her car off, and I got to drive her to the campus, and we got to talking. She goes, man, when I retire, I want to live like you. I said, yeah, you really do.
Coach, you got to start your own podcast, man.
I'll start my own podcast. So then I met with the former point guard for women's team at Baylor. And she was telling me a little bit about what went on up there with the football team and how that's not unusual. It's just that Baylor got caught. And so that was an interesting conversation.
Wow.
So I just really enjoy people's journeys and their stories and their perspective on things, and I get a kick out of that. So I don't know, if somebody came along and said, hey, I want you to coach me, I'd definitely sit down with them over a cup of coffee and say, all right, what do you want? What's your end game? What are we looking at? What's I don't know.
Yeah.
The college job came open, but I wasn't ready to move to Longview, Texas.
Yeah.
It's just I don't get me wrong. I love opportunities, but sometimes you just know where you fit and where you don't.
Right.
And I just don't think I'd find many kindreds there. And so this is kind of my area. I love Central Texas, San Marcos, Austin. So much to do.
I'm right there with you. I think there's a certain amount of value to waking up in the morning and just being happy here.
Absolutely. You feel good where you're at.
Right.
See, when I get out of a vehicle, I travel somewhere. When I get out, I can tell whether I belong there or not. It's like I got this vibe.
Yeah.
So like every time I get out of my car in East Texas, I go, this is really pretty, but I don't belong here.
That's right. Yeah.
I
know the feeling.
I get out of my car, I get out of my truck on Town Lake. I'm like, yep, I belong here. I get out of my vehicle in San Marcos. Yep. Yeah, I belong here.
Yeah.
I feel at home.
Yeah.
And certain places do that for me, and certain places don't. And so I don't try to force it. I'm like, no, I'm not. I wouldn't live here. And so I don't know what's in store. I don't.
I have a feeling you'll figure it out, Coach.
I hope so. I think so.
Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time to come in today.
Absolutely.
Love picking your brain again. It's kind of just like what you were saying, getting people's stories and listening to their stories. And I hope that in this podcast, in this series, that we're able to help young versions of ourselves.
Absolutely.
I'm relatively young, but helping younger versions of ourselves to become better by listening to those who've been there and done that.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate it, Coach.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Yep.